I knew something was off the moment we turned onto the street. It was still early, at least 20 minutes before the party was supposed to start, and yet every inch of the curb was already swallowed up by cars. Not just a few. Not the usual handful of relatives who always arrive first. Full. Completely, aggressively full. Like someone had decided that a 10-year-old's birthday party required its own traffic management system and a waiting list. That is my sister Illa. She does not host events. She performs them. She does not simply invite people to a gathering. She constructs an experience designed to remind everyone exactly where they stand in comparison to her. If you arrive on time, you are already late. If you arrive early, you get to stand on the edge of the scene while she finishes arranging things for maximum effect before the rest of the audience walks in. My daughter Willa sat in the back seat, both hands wrapped tightly around the gift bag in her lap, holding it with a kind of careful reverence that broke my heart a little. The gift was not expensive. That was the entire point. Inside the bag, nestled in tissue paper she had smoothed out herself, was a bracelet she had made by hand. Red and gold beads threaded together with a tiny lightning bolt charm she had chosen specifically because Autumn had been obsessed with Harry Potter for months. Willa had spent the better part of a week working on it at the kitchen table, tongue pressed lightly to the corner of her mouth, the way it always is when she is concentrating hard and hoping everything will hold together. "Do you think she'll like it?" she asked me for the third time since we had left the house. I looked at her in the rear-view mirror. "I think it's incredibly thoughtful," I said, "and you made it for her, not for the gift table." Willa nodded, but her eyes stayed nervous. She had the look of a child who could already sense the atmosphere of a room she had not yet walked into. My husband Derek walked beside me as we approached the house. He was quiet in that particular way he has, the steady, grounding kind of quiet that keeps me from saying the first sharp thing that rises in my throat. Illa's new house sat at the end of the cul-de-sac like it had been placed there specifically to be admired. Fresh paint. New wood. That faint chemical smell that says someone signed a lot of paperwork recently and wants you to know it. There was a balloon arch over the front entrance, so enormous it looked like it had its own mailing address. Willa tilted her head back to look at it. "Is all of this just for Autumn?" she whispered. "For Autumn," I said quietly, "and for anyone who needed a reminder of what money looks like when it is working very hard to be noticed." Derek's hand brushed my lower back. Not a warning, just a gentle, wordless reminder. Willa is watching. Choose carefully. The front door opened before we even had a chance to knock. Illa stood in the doorway, radiant in a way that was entirely too polished for a children's party. She was dressed like she had a photographer following her. Her smile was wide and bright and visible from halfway down the driveway. "Paige," she said, loud and warm, like we were the guests she had been waiting for most. "Finally." We were early. She hugged me quickly, hugged Derek in the careful, respectful way you hug a man you appreciate but cannot quite figure out, and then bent down toward Willa with an expression of manufactured sweetness. "Hi, sweetheart. Come on in. Autumn has been dying to see everyone." Willa gave her a small, polite smile and stepped inside without saying anything. That was enough. The house was full of noise and color. Kids running in every direction. Adults clustered in corners with drinks. The living room had a gift display that looked like a curated installation, bright bags and oversized boxes and tissue paper with designer logos peeking out like they were proud of themselves. Autumn stood near the pile in a stiff new outfit, her brother Miles racing laps through the hallway with a pack of boys, her little sister Amy spinning in place, because someone had complimented her dress, and she was determined to keep that compliment alive as long as possible. Willa walked straight to Autumn. No hesitation, no hovering at the edge of the room waiting for permission. Just honest and direct the way she always is. "Happy birthday," she said, holding the bag out with both hands. "I made you something." Autumn took it without saying thank you. Not cruelly, just automatically, the way a child takes things when saying thank you has never been required of them. She pulled the card out first, read it quickly, then opened the small box inside. The bracelet lay across the cotton lining. Bright, careful, made by a 9-year-old who genuinely believed that effort meant something. Autumn lifted it between two fingers and held it up. Her face shifted. Not dramatically, just enough. "What is this?" she said. Willa's shoulders tensed slightly. "It's a bracelet. The colors are from Harry Potter. I made it for you." Autumn turned it slowly, examining it like it might be a trick. A girl standing nearby laughed. That small, sharp sound that children make when they sense that someone else has been given permission to be cruel. "It's homemade," Autumn said, louder now, glancing over at the gift pile like she was checking in with her audience. "Yeah," Willa said steadily. "I made it." Autumn's mouth curved into a smile that had nothing kind in it. "This is kind of poor," she said. The word landed. I felt it from across the room. Willa did not move. She did not flinch. She did not cry or argue or try to take the bracelet back. She simply went very still, the way a person goes still when their body is deciding between fighting and disappearing. Then Miles, who had been orbiting nearby with the energy of a child who thrives on other people's discomfort, swooped in grinning. "My mom says your mom just cleans," he announced cheerfully, like he was sharing a fun fact he had overheard at the dinner table and liked the sound of. "So yeah, that makes sense." Willa blinked once, slowly. I had seen that blink before. It was the blink of a child doing everything in her power not to let a room full of people see her break. Autumn laughed again, louder this time, turning slightly so that more kids could hear. And then she leaned forward, looked Willa directly in the face, and said it with the clarity and confidence of someone who had been taught this was acceptable. "You will clean dirt like your mother." Willa's eyes went glassy. Not tears yet, just that thin, wet shine that appears when a child is fighting with everything they have not to let the room win. I was already moving toward them, but I was 2 steps too late. Illa drifted over, drawn by the laughter the way she always is. My mother followed close behind her, because my mother has never once missed a moment when the room's attention is focused on someone else's discomfort. Illa looked down at Willa with her smile still perfectly in place, her voice light and conversational, like she was offering my child a helpful and harmless piece of information. "You will never have a house like us." Willa's face went blank, not empty, not numb, blank like a page someone had just torn something out of. I waited for my mother to correct it, to laugh it off, to say that was enough, to do anything at all. My mother nodded, a slow, small, satisfied nod, as if Illa had just said something perfectly sensible about the weather. Like this was normal. And standing there in my sister's beautiful, expensive, carefully curated house, I understood something that should not have taken me 9 years of motherhood to finally see clearly. They were not teasing. They were not being careless. They were teaching. They were teaching my child exactly where she belonged and who she was allowed to become. Willa's mouth opened, then closed. No sound came out. She did not cry. Crying would have been easier for them to dismiss. She just stood there with her hands pressed tightly together, knuckles pale, holding herself in one piece. Derek appeared at my side without a word. His jaw was set. I did not look at him, because if I did, I would lose the small amount of control I was holding onto for Willa's sake. I crouched down to her level. "Hey," I said quietly just for her, "do you want to go home?" She nodded immediately. Too fast, like she had been waiting for permission to leave since the moment the bracelet came out of that box. I stood up. "We're going," I said. Illa's smile faltered for half a second, then snapped back into place. "Paige," she said, laughing lightly like I was being dramatic in front of company. "It was a joke." My mother waved her hand. "Don't be so sensitive, it's true." True. That is the word my family uses when they want cruelty to sound like honesty. Willa slipped her small hand into mine. Derek stepped close on her other side. We walked out. Behind us, the party kept going. Kids shrieking, adults laughing. Illa's voice rising above it all, light and bright and completely unbothered, working hard to keep the atmosphere intact. In the car, Willa stared at her lap for a long time. Then she whispered, "I thought she would like it." I kept my eyes on the road. "I know." Willa swallowed. "Is it bad that it was homemade?" "No," I said. It is bad that they act like money decides whether someone is worth being kind to. Willa nodded once, slowly, carefully, like she was storing that sentence somewhere inside herself where it would be safe. We drove home in the kind of quiet that has nothing peaceful about it. The kind of quiet where something has shifted, and everyone in the car knows it, and nobody is ready to say so out loud yet. When we got inside, Willa went to her room without being asked. Derek followed her to make sure she was all right. I went to the kitchen. I did not pace. I did not call anyone. I did not rehearse the argument I already knew my mother would find a way to twist into evidence of my own unreasonableness. I opened my laptop instead. Because confrontation gives people like my mother a stage, and I was done building stages for her. The next morning, my mother and my sister were going to find out exactly where their money had been coming from, and they were going to hate every syllable of the answer. But Willa did not need to know any of that yet. What she needed to know was that I had heard everything, I had seen everything, and I was finished allowing my family to teach my daughter to stay small. Illa is 2 years older than me, which in my family has always been treated as though she arrived first and therefore deserved more of everything. Nobody said it out loud. They did not need to. It was written into every single ordinary moment of our childhood. When we were kids, our parents gave us pocket money. Illa spent hers before it had a chance to settle. Candy, trinkets, anything shiny enough to feel like a small victory. Then she would sweep into the kitchen with whatever she had bought, holding it up like proof of good taste, and my mother would light up entirely. "Look at you," she would say. "You have such an eye." My father would smile faintly from across the room, half amused and half absent. He is about 15 years older than my mother, sharp in a quiet way, the kind of man who has always believed that keeping the peace and keeping people safe are the same thing. My mother has never made that mistake. I saved my money, not because I was noble or disciplined or trying to make a point, because I liked the feeling of having it. I kept it in an envelope in the back of my dresser drawer and counted it sometimes just to watch it grow. It gave me a sense of safety that my house never quite managed to provide. My mother hated that. "Why are you hoarding money?" she would ask, like saving was a character defect. "I'm saving," I would say. "For what?" Illa would ask, already chewing something she had just bought. "For later." My mother would laugh. Later is not guaranteed. Enjoy life. Then Illa would ask for more money, and somehow there was always more. My mother would sigh, dramatic and fond at the same time, and hand over another bill. When I asked for more, my mother would look at me sideways. "You still have money," she would say. "Yes," I would say, "because I did not spend it." "Exactly," she would say, "so why would you need more?" That was the rule in my house. Spending was rewarded. Saving was treated like stubbornness. The daughter who burned through everything was charming and spontaneous. The daughter who held onto things was difficult and joyless. Illa grew up as though she were always about to be photographed. New outfits, new shoes, always surrounded by people, always at the center of whatever was happening. I grew up practical. Homework, a part-time job, quiet hobbies. The kind of life that does not photograph particularly well, but does manage to pay its own bills without drama. My family did not find this charming. "You're so serious," my mother would say. "Lighten up." Illa would roll her eyes. "She is just boring." Sometimes my father would try, softly. "Let her be." My mother would talk right over him like his words were background music she had heard too many times. "Paige needs to learn," she would say. "Life is about people." What she meant was, life is about performing for the right audience, and I was failing the performance. She was not entirely wrong about the numbers, though. Numbers were the only thing in my childhood home that did not change depending on what story my mother had decided to tell that week. Illa married first. She married Mitchell, a man who looked impressive in the particular way that men look impressive when they know exactly how to present themselves. Nice car, big plans, a confident, easy smile that makes people assume the bank agrees with everything he says. My mother loved him immediately, which should tell you everything you need to know. They had 3 children together, Miles, Autumn, and Amy. Their life was loud and visible. Their house was always decorated. Their vacations were always posted. Their upgrades were always announced with the energy of people who needed the rest of us to bear witness. My mother adored all of it. "That is success," she would say, staring at Illa's photos like they were proof she had done something right. Then I married Derek. Derek does not come from money. He comes from work. He fixes things before they break rather than after. He keeps a flashlight in the car, checks weather reports before long drives, reads instruction manuals all the way through before touching anything. He is the kind of man who does not impress people who confuse chaos with personality, and he has never once seemed bothered by that. My mother's entire review of him, delivered once and never expanded upon, was, "He's nice." Derek and I started a business together, property maintenance. In plain language, we take care of rental properties. We fix what breaks, clean what tenants leave behind, make sure the next person can walk in without having to wonder what the previous person was doing in there. My family called it cleaning. "How's your little cleaning thing?" Illa would ask, smiling in the particular way that means she was technically asking a question, but actually making a statement. "It's going," I would say. My mother would wave her hand like she was brushing lint off a sleeve. "That's not real money." We did not argue, we just kept working. And quietly, steadily, without making any announcements about it, the business grew into real money. The kind you do not post about. The kind you actually use. Then Willa came. Willow was a gentle baby, not fragile, just deeply observant. She watched faces carefully before she decided anything about them. She listened before she spoke. Even as a toddler, she had this particular way of moving through rooms, slow and deliberate, like she did not want to knock anything over. The first time my mother held her, she did not say she was beautiful. She said, "She is so quiet, is she okay?" That was my mother in one sentence. If you are not performing, she assumes something must be wrong with you. Willa grew into the kind of child who says thank you without being reminded, who saves her candy for later, who makes birthday cards by hand because she genuinely believes the effort is the point. And every single time we were around my family, I watched her learn their rules the hard way, in real time, whether I was paying close enough attention or not. My mother lit up for Illa's children. Big hugs, loud praise, grabbing for her phone to take photos. Look at you, like they had cured something just by walking into the room. Willa got the polite version, the quick pat on the head. The "oh, how sweet," delivered in the tone you use for a pleasant background detail. Willa noticed, not in a dramatic way, not in a way she ever said out loud, but I watched her stop volunteering stories in the middle of telling them because no one in the room was listening. I watched her go very still when everyone else got loud. I told myself it was not favoritism. I told myself I was imagining it. I told myself Willa did not care. Mothers tell themselves a great many things when the alternative is admitting that your child is being measured and found wanting by the very people who are supposed to love her unconditionally. Then my father's mobility started declining. Not dramatically, not a crisis anyone could point to, just the slow, quiet kind of shift where stairs become negotiations and walking requires thought. My mother did what she always does when something needs handling. She organized it. She set up a donation fund with a cheerful, hopeful name, Steps and Strength. The description was warm and encouraging. The kind that makes people feel good about clicking donate. It was meant to cover the things insurance would not. Better therapy sessions, more frequent appointments, the quality of life additions that are easy to skip when you tell yourself there will be time to do them properly later. I could help, so I did. Not in a single large sum, because that would have become a story. I built it the way I build everything, quietly, methodically, without asking permission or announcing what I was doing. I created 26 recurring donor profiles under different names and different accounts, small individual amounts that together looked like a community of generous strangers. Altogether, they added up to approximately $2,800 a month. On top of that, I sent my parents a visible, unremarkable direct transfer every month. $200, sometimes $3, utilities, groceries. The ordinary kind of help that is easy to overlook precisely because it is always there. Willa did not know the numbers. She did not need to. She just knew that Grandpa was having a hard time walking, and she would look up from her drawing sometimes and ask, "Is he hurting today?" "He is doing his best," I would tell her. Derek did not love any of it. One night, after Willa had fallen asleep with her hair still damp from the bath, he sat across from me at the kitchen table and said, carefully and without raising his voice, "Paige, you know they do not treat you like family." "They are my parents," I said, because that sentence is very hard to argue with when it is living somewhere inside your chest. Derek kept his voice even, the way he always does. "I am not saying do not love them," he said. "I am saying do not teach Willow that love means swallowing disrespect." I did not answer, because he was right in a way I was not ready to name yet. Then came Autumn's party, the bracelet, the laugh, the words spoken directly to my daughter's face, and something in me turned clean and final like a lock sliding into place. I could be a daughter later. Right now I had to be Willa's mother first. That night after Willow was in bed, I sat at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. Derek sat across from me, quiet and present, not asking questions, just there. Willa had asked for an extra glass of water before bed, not because she was thirsty, because she did not want the day to end, because ending the day meant waking up tomorrow and having to remember all of it again. I hated that I knew that. I hated that I could not undo it. I logged into the donation portal. Steps and Strength stared back at me, my father's forced smile chosen by my mother because a smiling photo generates more donations. I clicked through to the recurring contributions. 26 little profiles. 26 small fictions I had built to protect my family from themselves. I canceled them one by one. The portal kept asking me if I was sure. Every single time. Yes, I was sure. Then I canceled the standing monthly transfer to my parents as well. The quiet $245 that had been going out every month like clockwork, while my family called what I did for a living, the little cleaning thing. When I was finished, I closed the laptop and sat in the silence. Derek reached across the table and took my hand. "You okay?" he asked. "No," I said, "but I am steady." The next morning passed quietly. By the afternoon, my phone rang. Illa. I stared at her name for a moment, then answered. "What did you do?" Her voice was sharp and breathless. I could hear my mother somewhere close behind her, loud in the particular way she gets when she is trying to manage something with sheer volume. "I don't know what you mean," I said, because I needed her to say it herself. "All the donors canceled," Illa snapped. "All of them. At the same time. Mom says this is not normal. Someone did something. Did you do something? Did you go after us?" I leaned back in my chair. "No," I said. "I did not go after you." "Then why did they all stop? We need that money." "We, not Dad, not care, not therapy, we." My stomach tightened. I kept my voice calm and even. "It was not 26 people," I said. A pause, a small one. "What?" Illa said. "It was me," I said. "All 26 profiles, I set them up. I paid them every month and I canceled them." Silence. Then Illa laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. "That's not funny." "I am not joking." My mother's voice cut through, louder now. "Paige, stop lying." "I am not lying," I said. "I am done." Illa's voice shifted quickly. "Where would you even get that kind of money?" I almost laughed, because the answer was the simplest thing in the world and also the thing they had refused to see for years. "I have a successful business," I said. "I just do not perform it for you." My mother made a sound, like she had bitten into something sour. "This is because of yesterday," Illa said, and now her voice had gone soft and syrupy. "Paige, it was a joke. We were just being silly. You know how kids are." My mother chimed in. "You are overreacting. Willa needs to develop thicker skin." Something went cold in my chest. I kept my voice perfectly level. "You told my child she will never have a house like yours. And when Autumn looked her in the face and told her she would clean dirt like her mother, not a single person stopped it. You laughed. You nodded. You taught my daughter that this was normal and acceptable." "She took it wrong," Illa said. She is 9 years old, I said. A pause. Then Illa's voice hardened. You have to turn it back on. No, I said. My mother's voice sharpened. Do you know what you are doing to your father? I waited because that was the moment I needed. Tell me, I said, what am I doing? Illa inhaled sharply. We cannot afford this without it. And there it was again, we. I did not respond. I let the silence stretch out and do its work. Illa cursed quietly, then said, We are coming over. The line went dead. Derek looked up from the sink where he had been washing dishes. He did not ask what had happened. He could tell. Are they coming here? He asked. Yes. He nodded. Okay. They arrived 2 hours later. My mother and Illa did not knock like guests. They knocked like people who expect the door to open immediately because it always has. Willa stood behind me, close enough that I could feel her breath against my arm. Derek stood back and let me take the lead. I opened the door. My mother did not look at my face first. She looked past me into my house, scanning it like she was checking whether I had somehow become a different person overnight. It was Illa who spoke, her voice too bright and too fast. Okay, she said. We get it, you have money, congratulations. Now turn it back on. My mother nodded once, sharp. This has gone far enough. I did not move out of the doorway. No, I said. You do not come here and give me orders. Illa's smile twitched. Paige, don't do this. It is embarrassing. For who? I asked. My mother's patience broke. For your father. She said it like it was a trump card, like invoking his name made everything else holy and untouchable. I kept my voice low. Then you will not mind if I call him right now and tell him exactly what I canceled and why. My mother's eyes widened for a fraction of a second. Illa's head jerked up. No. That one word, too fast, too terrified. I paused, not for effect, but because my body genuinely needed a moment to catch up to what I had just heard. I looked from Illa to my mother. My mother's face had gone tight. He does not need to be upset, she said. He does not need to know, Illa added quickly, then tried to correct herself mid-sentence. I mean, he is already dealing with enough. There it was. That was the slip, not a number, not a detail, the instinct. Keep Dad out of it. I felt something cold settle very quietly behind my ribs. Why would he be upset, I said, very softly, if all this money was for him? Neither of them answered. My mother's mouth opened, then closed. Illa's eyes flicked toward the driveway like she was calculating the fastest exit. Willa's fingers curled into my sleeve. I did not raise my voice. I did not repeat myself. I just stood there in my own doorway and let the silence do what silence does when there is nowhere left to hide. My mother finally spoke, clipped and resentful. You always make everything dramatic. No, I said. I make it clear. Then I said the sentence that changed the air in my own doorway. Tell me the truth about where that money was going. My mother stared at the floor. Illa stared at the wall. And in the silence between us, I got my answer without a single confession. But I needed to hear it from the only person who actually mattered, my father. I waited 2 days, not because I was hesitating, but because I needed time to think without anger sitting in the driver's seat. My father went to physiotherapy once a week. He did not love it. He went the way people eat their vegetables because he understood it was necessary and resented that his body had gotten to the point of needing it. I showed up at the clinic 15 minutes early. The waiting room smelled like antiseptic and old magazines. A television played a morning talk show at a volume too low to be useful. My father sat against the far wall, hands folded over his cane. He looked smaller than I remembered. Not weak, just older. He smiled when he saw me, genuinely surprised. Paige, what are you doing here? I wanted to see you, I said. Do you have a minute? We went outside. There was a small bench near the entrance. My father lowered himself onto it carefully, knees negotiating with gravity. I sat beside him. For a moment, I did not speak. I did not want to start with accusations. How is therapy going? I asked. He shrugged. All right, basic. Insurance covers most of it. Do you do the extra sessions? I asked, keeping my voice gentle. The ones the fund was meant to cover. He blinked. Extra sessions. My throat tightened. The ones that are not covered by insurance, the better program. He shook his head slowly. No, too expensive. Your mother said we could not justify it. I looked at him steadily. How much did you think the fund was bringing in? He looked uncomfortable. Oh, not much. A little. Maybe 100, 200 here and there. And you saw that money? I asked. He frowned. Your mother handled it. She said it helped with small things. I took a breath. Dad, I said, I need you to hear me without interrupting. He nodded, and for a moment he just looked tired. I have been donating to that fund, I said, every month. His expression softened immediately. Paige, you did not have to do that. I know I did not have to, I said, but I need you to understand how much. He blinked. How much? I pulled out my phone. My hands were steady even though my stomach was not. I set up 26 donor profiles, I said. Different names, different accounts, so no one would know it was me. Together, they added up to approximately $2,800 a month. My father did not speak. His mouth opened slightly and then closed again. That is, he started and then stopped. That is not possible. It is, I said, and I can show you. I turned the screen toward him. 26 profiles, recurring payments, dates, totals. His eyes moved across the list slowly, like his brain was running considerably behind his heart on this particular piece of information. The color drained from his face and then returned in patches. His hands, resting on his cane, began to tremble slightly. Why would you? He began, and then his voice cracked. Why would you do that? Because you needed it, I said. And because I could. And because I did not want Mom to turn it into a story about her own sacrifice. He stared at the screen for a long time. Then he looked at me. I never got that, he said, and the words came out heavy with the weight of something he had not yet let himself fully understand. Paige, I never got that. I know, I said quietly. That is why I am here. He looked down at his hands. I thought people were just being kind, he said, and swallowed. I thought strangers were just being generous. They were, I said. It was me. He closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them, they were wet. I could have done the better program, he whispered. I could have walked better. I felt a tightness behind my ribs that I did not allow to become tears. Not here, not in a clinic parking lot. I am sorry, I said, even though I was not the one who had done it. He shook his head. No, not you, his jaw tightened. Your mother. And it was not anger exactly. It was something quieter and more devastating. It was a man seeing his own life with sudden, terrible clarity. He turned his head toward the clinic door as though he expected her to appear there, smiling, already preparing a version of events she could live with. She never told me, he said. She never. I did not fill in the rest of that sentence, because the rest of it was too ugly to hand him all at once. That night my mother called me. She did not start with hello. How dare you, she hissed. How dare you go to him? Do you want to ruin our marriage? I held the phone away from my ear for a moment, then brought it back. You ruined your marriage, I said, not me. You embarrassed me, she snapped. You stole from him, I said, and my voice stayed perfectly even. Be grateful I did not call the police. A sharp inhale on the other end of the line. You wouldn't, she said, like she was issuing a challenge. I did not answer, because I did not need to. A week later, my father asked me to meet him at a lawyer's office. Illa was there. My mother was there. Mitchell was not, which did not surprise me. Mitchell has always been good at staying away from rooms where Illa's image might take damage. My mother sat upright in her chair with her lips pressed into a thin line. Illa looked like she had not slept. Her eyes were swollen and her hands would not stop moving. My father walked in slowly, cane tapping the floor, and sat down. He looked tired, but he also looked decided, and that was different. The lawyer explained things in plain, simple language. The house my parents lived in had belonged to my father's family. It had come to him through inheritance, which meant that legally it had always been his to do with as he chose. My mother's face moved through several expressions very quickly. My father spoke in a voice that was quiet but absolutely firm. "Your mother can live there while I am alive," he said, glancing at me briefly before returning his gaze to the table. "But when I am gone, it goes to Willa." Illa's head came up fast. "What?" My mother's face went pale. "That is not." My father raised one hand. "It is." The lawyer continued. "A trust with Willa as beneficiary and my father as trustee, a clear structure with clear boundaries." My mother stared at my father like she was seeing a stranger wearing his face. Illa's mouth worked soundlessly for a moment. "Dad, you can't." "I can," he said. My mother's voice came out thin and tight. "After everything I have done." My father looked at her, and something in his eyes had gone very still. Not hatred, something quieter than that. The look of a man who has simply run out of patience for a particular kind of story. "You handled the money," he said, "and you handled it wrong." My mother's jaw clenched. Illa started crying, suddenly and loudly, as though tears were a tool she had always relied on and could not understand why they were not working anymore. I sat still. Willa was not in that room. I was grateful for that. She did not need to watch adults bargain with consequences. After the meeting, my mother tried to control the narrative the way she always does. She told people I had frightened off donors, that I had attacked the family, that I was punishing my father for sport. But this time the story did not hold, because my father, the quiet man who had spent decades choosing peace over confrontation, did something that none of us had expected. He spoke. He called relatives. He told them what had happened. He did not dramatize it. He did not rant or perform or deliver it for maximum effect. He simply said it plainly. My wife diverted money that was meant for my care, and my daughter was the one who had been giving it. People went quiet, and then, slowly, they stopped returning my mother's calls the way they used to. The loudest consequence was not the trust, it was the silence. A year later, Illa's life looked different. She sold the house, the beautiful new one she had shown off like it was proof of her superiority over the rest of us. The mortgage had always been too large, and the cushion was gone, and the math eventually wins. She moved into a much smaller rental. I did not hear it from her directly. I heard it through the family grapevine, delivered by someone who insisted they were not gossiping while providing an extraordinary level of detail. Illa threw another birthday party that year, but it was not a production anymore. It was small and quiet, mostly family, because she could not afford anything larger, and also because once people know you were redirecting funds meant for your own father's medical care, they tend to discover prior commitments on birthday weekends. Her children struggled. They had grown up believing that no was a temporary condition, something that existed only until the right amount of pressure was applied. Now it was the permanent forecast. My parents stayed together. There was no dramatic separation, no clean cinematic ending. They had been married too long for any of that. They still live in the same house, but the future of that house no longer belongs to my mother. It is held in trust for Willa. My mother may live there while my father is alive. That was his choice. He did not want to blow up his entire life at his age. But when he is gone, she will not inherit the house she had always treated as evidence of her own virtue. My relationship with my mother is as close to zero as two people can get while still technically remaining in contact. We speak when we must, briefly, carefully, the way people handle something sharp. My relationship with Illa is even less than that. Not because I am holding a grudge, because I am done volunteering myself for pain. My relationship with my father changed. He started spending money on himself without apologizing for it. He goes to the better therapy now, the kind he used to call too expensive. I pay for it directly. No portals, no fun names, no cheerful descriptions designed to make strangers feel good. Just an appointment card, a receipt, and my father walking a little more steadily every time I see him. He comes to visit every week now, sometimes alone, sometimes with a small bag of fruit that he insists is specifically for Willa. He sits at our kitchen table while she shows him her newest bracelet, her newest drawing, her newest obsession, and he listens like everything she says actually matters. Because to him, now, it does. He is a better grandfather now. And quietly, in the way that matters more than any grand gesture, he is trying to become a better father too. Once, as he was putting on his coat to leave, he paused at the door and said, "I should have spoken up sooner." I did not answer right away, because that sentence carries a weight that deserves a moment. "I know," I said finally. He nodded, eyes wet, and left without making it bigger than it needed to be. Sometimes that is exactly how repair begins. Not with a dramatic apology, not with a grand gesture, just a person who finally decides to show up. If you were in my position, would you say I went too far, or not far enough?